and give it a test flight. See if we can get the 5-ton module up, and if that works, we'll add another one on it, see if we can get 10 tons up there. All right, here we are. Ludley Kerman is apparently our next pilot. Okay. So let's just not beat around the bush, let's just get it going. And the question is, can this ship carry 5 tons of spare parts up to the space dock? For that matter, can we successfully rendezvous? Then all we have to do is figure out how much tons of spare parts and other stuff we need to bring up there before we can build a good-sized interplanetary ship that will be launched from orbit. Our turn started here. Way more steeper than I thought. And yes, I'm using smartass to fix my steering error. Okay, those separator rockets do a really good job of getting the junk out of the way quickly. Okay, instead of overcooking the altitude quite so much this time, I actually caught it before we were up at 300,000. Okay, steady on our 90 degrees. Well, we were. Okay. Only 100 seconds out this time. All right, not bad. Accelerate a little bit through time. And circularize. really trying not to rely on smartass too much, but I'm not going to let my ineptitude destroy and ruin a perfectly good mission either. Apoapsis is climbing, but not near as much as it did on the last mission. And again, we'll have to correct for the obvious mistake. I guess we just cruise around and bring the apoapsis down. And I blew right on by the one I needed because I wasn't looking at the right part of the screen. That's all right. We have lots of time. Get this thing in a retrograde position. Bring that apoapsis down to 100. Do a little bit of back and forth jockeying to get them both. Actually, probably about 90 or 95 would be best, so that we're in a lower orbit than the dock. And we can catch up to it in its orbit. And that's the tedious part of an orbital rendezvous, is catching up with your target. Getting to the point where you're close enough in your orbits to actually do what you came here to do. And in this case, the objective is to get within 10 kilometers. Well, so much for that. We're out of fuel. Can you say flight mismanagement? Let's have a look at our situation here. Apoapsis 396 kilometers. Periapsis is 99 kilometers. The ship is out of fuel, which means it will not be delivering those parts. It has most of a tank of RCS fuel, about 3/4 of a tank. And that's what it has to maneuver with. All right, where is the space dock? Right there. And its orbit kind of overlaps the one we're on for about that much, which means that eventually, sooner or later, we would come within a reasonable distance. Well, sort of, kind of. Within 10 kilometers of each other? I kind of doubt that. So, there's only one thing left to do. Time warp around to Apoapsis and use the ship's attitude thrusters to decelerate and lower the periapsis low enough so that this thing can come down. I realize I could just simply end the mission, but I don't want to end the mission until the flight is actually complete in some way, as in having arrived where it needs to be, landed back on Kerbin, or something like that. If something ends up in orbit, then all right. And then we just need to do something about a rescue operation of some kind. Okay. I know I can see the numbers here, but I want to actually see it too. Got it down to 93. We really need to get it down below, say, 60 or 65, so that aero braking will have an effect. Get it down low enough to be inside the atmosphere at periapsis, and that means eventually the ship will come down. Okay. RCS is almost gone. We've got it down to 77. 73, 72. That's it for the RCS. We got it down to 69 kilometers. And there's only one way to see if that's going to be enough to start reducing this orbit. And that is to head around to periapsis and see what happens. And I really need to remember to be in ship view when I mess with this time acceleration. I don't want the ship coming apart. I want all of it to come down. The big thing is during this pass through the atmosphere, what's going to happen to both the apoapsis and periapsis? They should be coming down. If things work the way they should, the way we want them to, they'll be coming down. And the ship will eventually deorbit. Tells me one thing though, the next ship needs to have more fuel, perhaps boosters to help it get off the ground, and more RCS fuel. Periapsis came down by 0.001 kilometer. We're still going down though. Apoapsis is coming down. In other words, if I sit here and ride this out, sooner or later, these things will be coming down. Now, obviously, I would not include all of that in the entire video. It just, I would make a cut to final entry. All right. We're going back up. We've lost a little bit of periapsis. The next time it'll be lower. Apoapsis is a little bit lower. Not very much, but measurable. It shows up on the instrument. And so now it's just going to be a matter of ride this orbit several times around until these numbers come down low enough for re-entry to happen. And I'm going to go ahead and cut to re-entry. And so, after countless orbits coming down a little bit lower each time, periapsis dropping a little bit for each orbit, it looks like Lodley Kerman is about to re-enter. Periapsis is down to 30 kilometers, and he is definitely coming in. So we can finally get this ship back on the ground. We can get this mission over with and proceed on to other things. I have to tell you, it's been a rather long haul because these orbits take a while. Yes, I've been using time compression, and the way I've been doing it is I've noticed something, that when time compression is enabled, the physics engine is apparently not updating things like the periapsis and so on. It's not taking into account atmospheric velocity, atmospheric drag and whatnot, effect on the velocity and so on. So what I've been doing is, as the ship comes below 80 kilometers, I would switch out of regular time compression and go into physics time compression at 4x, which allowed all that to have an effect. And then as it passed above 80 kilometers and the periapsis stopped changing, I would switch back to regular time compression to zip around the world again. And that's all fine and dandy. It was painfully slow and took far longer than I really wanted it to. And yes, I could have simply ended the mission. But the way I'm playing this, that would be cheating. But the periapsis is now down to 28 kilometers, so let's have a look at where we're going to come down. And it looks like we're going to be coming down at night in the ocean. But that's all right. We're coming down. Now let's see. I want to turn the ship sideways to the flight path so that it's actually broadside to the way it's flying. And the reason for that is that way when I disconnect the stage, it will move away from the capsule. And I'm going to wait until it's down low enough to guarantee that this stage will hit as well. Because I've noticed something else. Once you disconnect something from the ship, like a lower stage or whatever, it proceeds on in whatever orbit it was in at the time. And the physics engine appears to not take any account to it. It doesn't pay any attention to it anymore, unless, of course, you select that piece and switch to it. Because it's only doing its thing for whatever piece it's switched to. Okay, periapsis is down below the planet's surface. And our pilot is on his way down. And it's coming up this way. Maybe we won't be coming down on the night side. Perhaps it will only be twilight. And speaking of twilight, the nonsensical complete non sequitur of the day is vampires don't sparkle. That's it. And now we can get rid of that stage. All right. Well, looks like we're coming down ahead of that stage, which frankly it should be. I would think it should be dropping at the same rate that we are. Yes, we And our next job is to obviously redesign this thing so that it's actually got a shot at getting into orbit and doing a successful rendezvous with the space dock. And that will be coming up next. And there you have it, a successful return from an unsuccessful mission, which we will now end, head back to the vehicle assembly building, and back to the drawing board.